improvements don't get along with it very well. Like basement walls, basement slabs, crawl space walls,
Chimneys.
concrete porches, chimneys. When those things move differently, they break, or they separate, or something like that. Say there's a gap between two floor slabs, or a gap between a walk slab and a drive slab, or a basement slab and a basement wall, something like that. I would expect it to be a part of a pattern. Does that make sense? I would expect to
Kind
see.
of, but this just happened, so it's probably the beginning of possibly a pattern.
Well, I think it's been going
That's-
on for a long time. It
Well,
just,
The picture you had there, was that from the time frame that Bryce was out there, or is that more recent?
that's just been in the last couple months
And you were out there
in
a
May.
ways back
May.
before that?
Yeah.
Okay.
May was my last time.
Yeah, we've been waiting 9 months to get this.
So, well,
Mhm.
almost 8.
Okay. 8 months,
Um,
I'm sorry.
I would offer routinely a piece of advice, and Mark can correct me if it's the wrong piece of advice, but if there's a piece of damage in your house, in your insured stuff, and you suspect that it's related to mine subsidence, the appropriate thing to do would be to file a claim and have it looked at. So if something has changed, because Bryce's determination, which I've been through the notes and the damage and the survey and the lot of it, and I agree with his determination, but that determination is based on the information that he had at the time. So if something is developed in the meanwhile, and you suspect that it might be related to a mine subsidence, the appropriate thing to do would be file a claim and have it looked at.
And I would say prior to even doing that, because there was obviously a delay on our part, so I'd rather not see you file another claim, because I still have some things ongoing to make sure. It shouldn't have took 6 months to get that report, right? That was on us. Got sent to the wrong person, and we didn't do enough follow-up to get it to the right person. So I have some meetings set up for next week with our legal team, because make sure we weren't in the wrong. So maybe we can, if we are going to send somebody else out to investigate it further, maybe we can attach it to this claim, because it was our delay. And if that stuff came up within that time period, we can look at it then. So let me look into that before we file a new claim, and I should have a good answer for you within the week.
So, just like Bryce's sketch there, mine subsidence is a specific failure. We anticipate a particular kind of movement. Downward movement in the vast majority of it, more toward the center, a little less toward the outside. But where we get less...
So you're saying my dirt's growing. Is that what you're saying?
No. It heaves and falls. Just like the door that worked and didn't. And then it will work again and it won't again. And then it'll work again and then it won't again.
Okay.
Everything heaves and falls. It's associated with a moisture cycle and inflation.
Well, and that leads to another issue. You know, I had talked to you about the dryness around that house, the fact that we hardly ever get any moisture even near that house, because, and then you had put in your report something about poor drainage off the front, off the west side. And that's not true. It drains straight to that street. And I had asked, and I had said to you, you should come out when it's raining hard. You will see the way this water separates on the hill. Half of it goes straight to the street, and the other half goes straight to the backyard down the hill. There is no water around this house. There's never been any moisture under that home since it was built in 1983. So I don't understand why there would be a lot of moisture change under that house or right near that house. There's never any water up against that house unless we have 50-mile-an-hour winds and a real bad rainstorm. It's dry all the way around that.
You have, if I'm wrong, correct me, but you have 3 big oak trees out in the front, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
And
They draw moisture from the ground. And if you're during a drought time or a dry time like you had been since 2000, well, 2014 is when you took ownership, correct?
Mhm.
So there was a drought time that we were climbing out of last year. So during the drought time, they're going to draw more moisture out of the ground. So it's going to
That I understand.
It's going to change the moisture
I don't think
content of your soil, which
Even
and
under
then
our
once
home, when it's already dry there and there's never been any water get under there.
you have trees in your backyard also,
Right,
correct?
and
they're below your
I don't know that
foundation.
there's anything they can draw from under the house itself, is what I'm saying. There's plenty of yard there that they're going to draw from, but I don't see how they can draw from under our home, honestly.
We see that routinely.
Even
And-
though our house sits on
Well,
a hill like this.
Right, but
Right in the middle of the
surface
top.
drainage is different than subsurface drainage. So most of the untouched surface soils in this part of the world, if it's a fairly broad, not on the side of a hill, but if it's a fairly broad area, the surface soils are fairly silty. They're crumbly, would make good bean field, that kind of stuff. So
My yard's like a rock.
when
It always has been.
when it rains on that kind of soil, most kinds of soil, some of it soaks into the ground. The drainage that the report speaks about is subsurface drainage. What happens to that water? Does it sit and linger, or does it move away?
It runs off.
But not the surface water. What gets soaked in? What infiltrates?
Not a whole lot where we're at. I swear to God, we are at the top of the
Okay.
hill. Well, it is. It runs off.
You're beating a dead horse.
That we see in our survey pretty routinely in shallower foundations, really shallow things. A shallow founded front porch, a walk slab, a drive slab, things like that, not very deep in the ground. We will routinely see pushing an inch of annual vertical cycle. That the ground very near the surface heaves and falls pretty routinely, most soil types,
Oh,
pushing an inch.
it,
By the
does,
time,
it doesn't at our house. And that's what she was trying to tell you. You say here that it's poorly drained soil, and then surface runoff is slow.
That's not
Well,
true.
And then it says from March through May, water, let's see, where is it? Frequently flooded for brief periods. I've only been there 4 years, but the creek comes up when it rains, but it's never flooded.
I'd have to look at the soil map to say specifically what they're talking about. But keep in mind that those are technical words from the soil survey. So
You know, I don't care
Frequently
about
flooded
I don't
may
care
mean-
about the rest of St. Clair County.
no, but
And that's
it's
what it refers
specific
to
your,
here.
well, it's the St. Clair County Soil Survey. So the county is differentiated into a number of different soil types. There are maps for it, there's a whole big 2 volume about it. So flooded doesn't mean feet of water in a creek. Flooded means standing water on the surface of the ground. Even if it's a tiny little bit. If it stands there,
And how close does that have to be to your home to affect it?
For how long?
Their definition is something like a number of hours.
Oh.
6, 8, 10,
We
12
don't
hours,
have
something
any of
like
that
My yard's
anywhere.
never flooded.
Anywhere. And our neighbors have, they're all on hills also. And it's all they can do to keep the grass growing because it's all hilly, everything runs off and it runs straight to the street.
Mhm.
Nobody has any standing
Everybody
water
has
there.
monster water
Nobody.
bills that has a green yard.
Our neighbor has $200 a month water bills in the summer, which normally it should be about 50. Because we cannot contain or retain any water in these yards there. Just can't, we're all on a hill.
Any other questions?
Is a 6-month study pretty standard in Illinois? This was 6 months.
As far as the mine subsides
yeah,
investigation?
just watching over the pins. And,
Right.
And what caused the one pin to pop out of the house, out of the foundation, because that wasn't a foundation.
I don't know. Maybe it wasn't.
For installation.
Maybe it wasn't installed all the way. Maybe it was hit by something.
Did they get a shot on it the second time?
They did.
Are you sure it was our pin and not a different?
No, it was
Screw in the-
one of the first pins put in.
Was it popped out or was it moved sideways? You said.
It was gone. It was gone within a month.
Okay.
That's just for installation.
Any other questions we can answer?
Yeah, how does the arbitration process go?
Well, I'll answer it by, I really encourage you to go online and look at the statute first, because it speaks directly to how it works, the arbitration process. There's a whole paragraph directly on the issue.
Look at it.
Okay.
I believe Ruth sent that over to you.
Yeah, we have it.
Okay. The process starts 60 days from the date you've gotten your coverage position letter from Nationwide. So, and that, like I said, that's the reason for the sense of urgency to get this meeting done. So you have time after this to file that within the statutory timeframe. In order to file, you have to file it with the American Arbitration Association. There's an entire website, actually the entire booklet will explain to you how to file. There's a filing fee assessed with it, depending on how much, on the amount of the claim that you were making, the amount of dispute. The fee gets higher as the amount elevates. So I can't remember.
They work on a
this.
percentage.
No, actually, it's a sliding scale, but it's a flat fee based on a range of dollars. So I think it's 70. If you're claiming more than excess of 75,000, for example, then I think the flat fee's $1,300, $1,400. But you have to file that first. File it with your claim. You have to present your evidence as to why you feel we are incorrect with regard to our filing. Within 10, 15 days after you file your notice, we receive our notice, we have to file our response. And then I think within 30 days thereafter, then a formal hearing is made after the arbitrator is decided upon.
And who picks the arbitrator?
The arbitrator is decided by the Arbitration Association. There's a number, I think there's like 5, well, I take that back. There's about 5 panelists that are selected by the American Arbitration Association. I think we get to select 2 and discount 3. Each side does.
Right.
And then at that point, I think
Do you
it's
flip a coin to see who goes first?
I don't think so. I think basically we get the same 5 people. You get to say no to these 3, but yes to this one, and so forth and so on. We do the same. Arbitrator finds any commonality between the ones we agree upon. If we agree upon one, then I think that's the one that's selected. If we can't agree upon any of them, then I believe the association then makes the determination as to who it's going to be. Then at that point, evidence is then submitted. Then the hearing is then announced as to when the hearing date will be. And the hearing date is in Chicago, because that's again part of the statutory requirement.
Oh, I thought they said they had Springfield and Chicago, but
I think Springfield was an option on it. I could be wrong. I thought it was all. I'm going back to when the arbitration was set, and I think it was set in Chicago as the forum.
Why were we not told, or were we, but I don't recall, and I don't recall seeing anything on the paperwork, that there was upward movement?
Was it in your findings report there?
I didn't see it unless I didn't understand what it said.
Should be there in the conclusion. The lack of downward movement recorded in the components of the level line, the deep-seated settlement points, and the pins placed in the residence, as well as the stable condition of the tilt.
Okay, to me, that's not saying there's upward movement, though. It just says like downward movement. That's the way I took it. There's any move at all.
let's see.
One of the things that we're looking for is downward movement. Mine subsidence makes downward
Right,
movement.
right.
So it's a pass-fail test there for that particular aspect. So mine subsidence makes downward movement. Did it make downward movement? No. So there's a lack of downward movement. It didn't mean that it didn't move. It just meant that it didn't satisfy that requirement to be mine subsidence.
on your damage assessment here, it says the north wall displayed the most tilt, 2 1/16 inch. Tilt remained constant during the course of the investigation, right?
Correct.
All right. Let's see who this guy was. Mid-American Law Service.
Yeah, he was Dome.
RDA.
He was the investigator. He's probably the first person you had met after you submitted the claim.
Okay.
Mike.
All right. He's got the north elevation as 1 1/16 to the east, east elevation an 1/8 inch to the north, south elevation 1 5/16 to the west, west elevation 1 3/4 to the south. What happened?
His measurement techniques aren't as precise as ours.
So you only measured one corner, and he measured 4.
No,
but he's not as precise.
We measured the tilt around the whole house.
It didn't say that.
Well,
And I don't
So the
know,
tilt
more
was
importantly,
perfect on 3 corners. Is that what you're saying?
well, Mike
There was
is,
no tilt.
Mike is using, when
No.
Mike is doing your, I'm sorry, go ahead. I just jump over anybody.
we measured tilt around the whole house. That's what they do with the pins. That's what they do with the shots on siding. We didn't need it because you had brick veneer around the house. So they used the brick veneer for their tilt measurements. Your back wall,
What do they use? They use a laser level, or what do they use?
they use the level instrument that they use to run their benchmark line.
Okay, is that a plastic level
It's-
this big, or is it
No,
something
it's
with a dial, or a?
It's a Leica NA2 with a GPM 3 micrometer.
It's far more sophisticated than what Mr. Dome had. Mr. Dome had a laser level. It's just general construction laser level you would see in and you can buy them in any hardware store. What Mr. Dome is trying to do is he's taking levels, depending on what he's measuring. He's maybe taking a piece of your siding and trying to establish a level line across
They have
one end or
siding,
another.
except in the back.
Okay,
No,
well, he's taking their common mortar joint then,
Okay.
on each end of your brick. All he's doing is making a determination to tilt based on his study of your house only. We aren't doing that. We're looking at your house,
All right.
on the benchmarks as well as the study.
So you probably understand my confusion and all
Sure.
this, so, right?
But they're different measurements by different instruments
Right.
and different people. Our surveyors are day in and day out surveyors, and they're lifelong surveyors
And
with a multi-$1,000 setup of instruments, and the adjuster